Welcome to Metro Talk. I'm Kent Shuffle. Thanks for being with us. Pat Gowan's here. Pat's one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch. Welcome, Pat.
Hi, Kent.
And Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, is alongside. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, guys.
Jim, former Governor Rod Blagojevich has begun his 14 years in prison. Any surprises on how he handled his final days and how he handled his trip to the pen?
Well, I wonder if he has his 0824-824 number memorized as yet. This was our governor that was going to go quietly into the dark night and just go serve his time and didn't have anything else to say. And then a couple of days before, he decided, you know what, I don't want to go quietly. I'm going to have a little talk. And it just happens to be at 5:02 the night before I report, so that I can be the lead story on all the Chicago TV stations. I think he had some paid political supporters standing around behind him because he had kind of quite a crowd. Of course, he had Patty there, which I would expect, and he brought out his two daughters to show them off one last time before he reported. I guess none of that surprised me. I don't think any of us expected him to go away quietly. Basically, he's still professing his innocence in all of this, that he really didn't do anything wrong, that he had the best interests of, I think he said, the common man was the quote he used, at heart through this whole ordeal. As I understand it, the next day they got lost on the way to the prison. They had to stop and have a burger on the way because they were running late. I haven't heard if he was able to enroll in the drug treatment plan as yet, which would take a year off of his term, which would end up then be a 13-year sentence where he would serve 11 years or so, 10 to 11 years. What will be interesting to see is whether this will take some of the spunk out of him, take some of the arrogance out of Blagojevich, because we all know he's been pretty arrogant all along. And he's now in prison. He has his number decided. He's in a suburb of Denver. There is word that Patty and the girls are going to move out there to be closer to him, so I guess they get visitation rights. It's a minimum security prison. It's not like doing the hard time. He's not going to Menard or someplace where he's mainstreamed with the roughest of the rough. He's been sentenced. We'll see what happens, and now he's going to serve his time. A lot of people, and I heard some discussion last week, that many people still think he was railroaded, that he got too stiff a sentence for what he did. I don't think so. That's just my personal opinion. And now he'll serve his time. By federal guidelines, he's going to be in there, I think, at least 10 and a half to 11 years. So he's got a lot of time to decide whether or not he did something wrong.
Somewhat reminiscent of the O.J. Simpson case when we saw the helicopter flying above the SUV, following the SUV on its way to prison.
Well, the SUV was going a little faster than 18 miles an hour down the highway in Santa Monica, I think it was, when O.J. went down. I understand that TV news has to do things like that. I can't imagine that people were glued to the TV set watching the SUV report to the prison in Colorado. One of these days we'll get another interview with Governor Blagojevich, and we'll see if he's had an attitude adjustment, and I think he probably will.
Pat, the former governor is now in prison. Any surprises on the way he handled his final days of freedom?
Not really. At a televised press conference he had with his wife standing there with expressions that I could not read, except she looked alternately horrified, she looked amazed. I think even she was rocked by the fact that the guy's up there making what was in effect a campaign concession speech about all the things he did well, but it turned against us. I had the impression she wanted to grab him by the elbow and maybe slap him in the face and say, "Rod, wake up! You're going to prison, man." I felt like whatever her expression was, it probably was the same as mine while I was watching it on TV. After about a half dozen columns on Blagojevich, I sort of swore him off, but I wrote one more this week. And I mentioned OJ in the column, by the way. The chase and all was sort of reminiscent of OJ. OJ's in prison for 33 years for an armed robbery and kidnapping in a hotel in Las Vegas, you may recall, having nothing to do with his acquittal of the murder of his ex-wife and her friend Ron Goldman. He's eligible for parole in 9. He can be out in a lot less time than Rod. In fact, if Rod had committed second-degree murder, if he got mad and killed somebody, in Illinois, you'd get probation for that. And the prison sentences start as low as 4 years for that, which would be 85% of 4 years, a lot less than the 12 years he's on the hook to serve right now. And my column sort of looks at the question of, is that too much? 12 years. A kid who's graduating from kindergarten this spring will be graduating from high school when Rod Blagojevich takes his next free breath. That's a long time for a guy 57 years old. I'm bothered by his kids, 2 little girls who I'm sure are having a difficult time with their peers and who are probably crying themselves to sleep at night. And yet he's able to stand in front of the TV audience and talk about missing his family and not a damp eye to the guy. He did no sign of remorse, no sign of emotion about it. He's just on stage, more me, more about me. Give me some more spotlight. I need this. I can't imagine what kind of crash the guy must have behind bars, but it's got to be dramatic. Although, unlike Jim, I doubt we'll ever see it. If there's a TV interview with him in prison, I think he'll probably put the face back on. I don't think he's ever going to let us see the reality behind it. Edwin Edwards, the governor of Louisiana, was out after a heavy corruption conviction and 4 terms as governor, freighted with questions of corruption. He was out in a little over 8 years. He did a lot more than Blagojevich ever did. Blagojevich didn't actually get any consideration for his crime. It was just a lot of talk and a lot of arrogance and a lot of tweaking the nose of the federal government, which are never wise things to do. But Edwards, for heaven's sakes, was out in 8 years. I think it's interesting that if you're looking at deterrence, every Illinois governor to go to prison has served a little more than half the actual time of the one who went before. It was about 7 months, I think, for Otto Kerner. It was about 18 months for Dan Walker. It's 5.5 years for George Ryan. Now it's 12 years for Blagojevich. I don't know how much is going to be enough for a deterrent. I am presuming that the next one will go for 25.
Well, I do understand that Blagojevich is available for commencement addresses in 2024 for the graduating classes if you want to book him now.
My guess is you're right. I wonder if he's going to run for something.
We need to take a break. We have more Metro Talk coming up.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the music program with Dr. Teresa Crane.
Have you always wanted to learn how to play the piano? Maybe you wanted to learn Beethoven's Für Elise. Or maybe you like a more popular style like Jim Brickman. Or maybe you like jazzy blues. You can learn all this and more right here at Lewis and Clark Community College.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
When you open a book, you can explore new lands, make new friends, and discover new adventures. There are amazing possibilities when you open your mind to reading. Explore new worlds. Read.
60-inch screen, high definition. Football season is coming up. You can watch it right here. What do you think?
I'll take it.
Huh? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
You're right. I don't need it.
This is Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Jim Schrader and Pat Gowan are here. Pat, tornado damage in Harrisburg and the surrounding area is being recalculated as a result of FEMA denying aid for that area. Should FEMA have denied aid for the Harrisburg area after the tornadoes hit southern Illinois?
I have to think that politics plays a role, and this is the home state of the President of the United States. It's the home state of the second-ranking member of the United States Senate with Dick Durbin among the Democrats. It's hard for me to imagine from a political point of view that it'd be very wise to deny this to, was it, I think, 7 counties, 425 homes destroyed or damaged, 7 people dead. On the other hand, there's not an unlimited pot of money, and they do have standards for this. If my home alone were hit, if my home were destroyed today by a tornado that didn't do any other damage, would I get federal disaster aid, which generally are low-interest loans, money to help repair infrastructure, grants in some cases? You know, if I'm insured, my insurance policy covers tornado damage. If I'm insured, should I expect to be a one-lot federal disaster agency? And then if not that, what if it's just my neighbor and me? What if it's 2? Or what if it's 5? Or what if it's 20? Or what if it is 426? FEMA has a formula that takes into account the level of insurance that's available to the people who are damaged, and it takes into account the state resources. I would think that alone would be enough to get the whole state declared a disaster agency on economic grounds. But aside from that, they've got a formula to use, and if you don't do it for everybody, then you're going to make some people very unhappy, because everybody who applies for it theoretically is in some significant need for it. It's interesting, they turned down Illinois in this tornado, they turned down Missouri, but they did accept Indiana and Kentucky. And relatively, I don't know what the standards are, but it seems like at a time when we are trying to put a bridle on spending at the federal and state levels and say there have to be limits on what we can do, that it's not unreasonable to expect that FEMA might apply limits on us. Now, whether they're fair in this case, I don't know. Durbin suggests they did a reality check. They have sort of reset things for a reapplication, and we'll see how that turns out. But I don't know if that's based on a compliance with their standards, or if it's based on political pressure, and we'll see.
I suspect political pressure is why the application is going to be resubmitted and reconsidered. As I said to one of the people in the newsroom, you know, so much for the ace in the hole here. As you pointed out, the President of the United States is from Illinois. The number 2 man, Dick Durbin, in the Senate, is from Illinois. And Harrisburg gets basically shut out of any type of help from the federal government. We know what kind of help they're going to get from the state, and it's probably not going to be much other than maybe some low-interest loans. So you would think that that ace in the hole would have been in play there. But I agree with Pat that at some point in time, there's only so much money in the pot of gold here. And there are decisions that are going to have to be made. What will be interesting to see is if, when Harrisburg reapplies, or I guess that process is going now, if a bunch of money comes forward out of FEMA, then everybody's going to say, see, it's politics. Okay, it is because Durbin and Obama said, wait a minute, this is not right. The cynic in me says, okay, the Harrisburg area, that part of southern Illinois, has a tendency to vote for Republicans, not Democrats. I wonder if that had anything to do with it. Joplin, that area of Missouri, has a tendency to, even though there's a Democratic governor there, of course, as there is in Illinois, that area of the state has a tendency to go Republican. It makes you wonder. What will be interesting to see is if there is about face by FEMA in the Harrisburg area, and what will be their excuse, other than saying, we got our collective arms twisted by Durbin and Obama.
Pat, proposed sales tax to help pay for park improvements in St. Louis City, St. Louis County, St. Charles County may go on the ballot to raise the money to make those improvements happen. The bottom line is it the right time to seek a sales tax increase to improve parks?
It wouldn't seem so, but I guess it's probably never the right time either. This is a 3/16 cent sales tax that would be proposed in St. Louis City County and St. Charles County. And the way it's established, this is very interesting. They need St. Louis County because it has the most revenue. So they're proposing that they will do it if St. Louis County voters approve it, and either St. Charles County or St. Louis voters, or both. But if it's just St. Charles County and St. Louis City, they won't do it. It has to be St. Louis County and at least one of the others to make enough revenue for this to make a difference. Most of the money raised would go to local parks. Some significant part of it would go to building the lid over Interstate 70 to connect the arch grounds to downtown St. Louis and to do all the wonderful things that are envisioned by the year 2015, which is rolling right at us. On the arch grounds. And there is talk, Civic Progress, the leader of CEOs and big movers and shakers in the St. Louis area, Civic Progress is behind this. There's talk of pushing for a referenda in Illinois as well, Madison and St. Clair counties, if this goes well, to see if Illinois would pay its portion too. I think it would be very interesting if it ended up being paid for by, say, St. Louis County and St. Louis City and Madison County, but not St. Charles County, not St. Clair County. We're such a patchwork, it's hard to raise money for regional projects because of this. 2 states, all these different counties. So I sympathize with the people who are trying to put the plan together. It goes to the voters will decide. Mayor Slay and County Executive Dooley in St. Louis County are for at least getting it on the ballot. County Executive Earlman in St. Charles County is not. I imagine there are people in Illinois are going to say, over my dead body, am I going to pay for something over there? But we've been freeloaders for a long time. The people in Illinois enjoy the art museum, we enjoy the zoo and other attractions that are paid for in Missouri by a tax that we don't pay. And generally it's still free to us to go to these places. So as a matter of honor, I'd like to think that maybe we would participate, but is it a good time? Goes back to your original question. 3/16 of a cent of sales tax isn't very much, but what else needs funding and how much else is going to be added to that tax for other reasons? You know, if Illinois puts on the $5 a head strip club tax, you got to consider that on top of paying your 3/16. So all this comes together in a heavier tax package for you.
Well, I think the city fathers in St. Charles have basically already said 3/16 over my dead body. You know, why do we want a 3/16 sales tax to fund this project in downtown for the arch grounds and the gateway expansion, and putting a lid over 70? Which, you know, the arch and the grounds there is a federal project. These are the same taxpayers that are going to have to vote on this that didn't want tax money in the building of Busch Stadium. I suspect if given a choice today and they're going to be told that they were going to have to build a new dome for the Rams, I suspect that they would vote that down as well. I just wonder how many people are going to say, yeah, we really enjoy those parks, and we're going to be willing to pony up the 3/16 sales tax. I must admit that I do like to frequent the zoo. I do like the fact that it's free, but if I had to pay in attendance, I'd still go. I mean, to me, there is a value there, and maybe there are some issues there that may need to be considered at some point in time that, you know, the user pays. And if I want to go to the zoo, then I may have to pay.
We'll take a quick break and have more Metro Talk after this.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the radio broadcasting program in WLCA with Mike Lemons.
Have you ever listened to your favorite radio station or your favorite disc jockey and say, you know, I could do that? Or maybe you're the type of person who says, I could never do something like that. Well, with the help of first-year mass comm student John, we're going to show you just how easy it is. Each voice intro starts with talking about the band that just played, and we add a station identifier. Next, you want to offer some information that may be of interest to your audience. And finally, tell the listeners what the next song is, who sings it, followed by another station identifier. John will do one live now.
Silver Sun Pickup substitution on WLCA. The Big Pink released their debut album called A Brief History of Love. The single is off that album. It's The Big Pink with Dominoes. It's on College Radio's Best 89.9.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
What's that? I don't know. Something I kind of made. Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
Ow! Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
Sounds like you could use some Van Gogurt. It's fortified with arts-rich nutrients to improve your math and reading skills. Catch!
Van Gogurt, thanks. So what's the deal with your ear?
Always with the ear, huh?
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
You're watching Metro Talk. I'm Kent Scheffel. Jim Schrader's here along with Pat Gowan. Jim, a federal judge has struck down an Illinois law that governed how much you could donate to a political action committee. Do you agree with the ruling?
This is one of those where I'm kind of divided. You know, there are so many millions of dollars now donated to PACs for political messages that ostensibly have nothing to do with a specific candidate, but they frankly always do. I think there are rules in place where the PAC cannot be in communication or in touch with the election or the re-election committee for that particular candidate or the election committee, that they have to spend the money on their own. They have to have a disclaimer that says, you know, we have nothing to do with the Obama candidacy or whatever. By the same token, as a free speech advocate, if I want to donate a bunch of money to further a message that I think is politically important, and I want that message out there, shouldn't I be able to contribute to that cause to get that message spread? I hate seeing all the millions of dollars that go into these campaigns. I hate seeing how much of this money is spent and you know, some can say wasted. But if I want to donate to a church because I believe in their message and I want to help further their cause, I can do that. Shouldn't I be able to do that to a PAC as well, because they have a message that I believe in, and I believe that message should be furthered?
Pat, was the ruling correct when it struck down how much we as Illinoisans could donate to a political action committee?
I don't think the judge had any choice, given Supreme Court and federal appellate court decisions that essentially are in that direction. This is a situation where Jim and I are sitting together at a ball game, and he's a Cardinals fan and I'm a Cubs fan. I'm not really, but this is a hypothetical. Don't write. And we're both yelling for our teams, only Jim's got a better voice than I've got, so he can yell louder than I can. And I'm saying, well, wait a minute, that's not fair. You know, he's got more voice than I've got. You know, you ought to be able to tone him down because he's got more voice. I mean, is that fair? We're not talking about the Cubs and the Cardinals anymore. We're talking about a conservative cause and a Democrat and a liberal cause. We're talking about dollars, not voice. But otherwise, it's all pretty much the same thing as I said. He's got more money than I've got. So do I have to hold him back because I don't have as much money as he has? Is that fair? Yes, we have done that with candidates. But that's the other side of the coin. We regulate candidates in a number of ways. You've got to file by a certain date. You've got to file certain financial disclosure reports. The courts have held that this is all proper. And we prevent the candidates from accepting more than a certain amount of money by contributions. It's not really preventing me from giving it to them. It's preventing them from accepting it, which is somewhat different. The courts have held differently about the givers. And essentially, while I cannot give a fortune to Mitt Romney, I can give a fortune to a political action committee not affiliated with Romney that would do his bidding for him. And that's what we're seeing happen. And it's nasty and it's ugly, but American politics have always been nasty and ugly. Go up to the Lincoln Museum in Springfield and look at the kind of advertising that was being paid for, attacking not only Abraham Lincoln, but his wife while he was running for the presidency. It was every bit as nasty as the worst of what you see on television now. The media have changed, but the message hasn't changed, and it still has to do with who's got money to spend on a campaign. Part of a robust, free enterprise system. I don't like it. I don't like being lied to. I don't like being misled. I don't like the half-truths that seem to come with it. But in a free speech society, that's part of it. And I might not like him yelling for his ball team any better than I like the rest of it. But that's just, it comes with the package.
One of the things I also would like him to, you know, if that's not going to happen, But we were talking about this before we went on the air today, is these political robocalls or the automatic dialing. I was home much of the weekend. From Friday night till Sunday night, my landline at home had 21 robocalls in a little over 2 days. We're taping this on Tuesday. This is primary day in Illinois, as we're taping this.
That's why we're not talking about the results.
Which is why we're not talking about the results. Yesterday, Monday, when I got home about 6 o'clock last night, I had 6 messages on my answering machine that were all robocalls. This is from this or that or this. And apparently the robocalls go ahead and leave messages, though I fool them because I've got a 30-second limit on my answering machine that kicks them out after 30 seconds. But I had 6 messages on my machine, and I got 3 more last night between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Robocalls for political purposes were exempted when the do not call list legislation was put in state and federal boundaries. But 21 calls in a little over 2 days, or 9 calls in a day, to me is an abuse of my phone that I'm paying for. You know?
It drives me crazy, and I agree that political calls ought to be exempted, but I don't know that robocalls ought to be. If Rick Santorum or Mitt Romney want to call me personally, or Ken Scheffel wants to call me personally on behalf of some candidate, I think that ought to be allowed. But I don't know that having a machine call me, and in some cases repeatedly call me, that's a nuisance. And if they call me on my cell phone, depending on what package of minutes I have, they're costing me money, and I've had that happen too. I'm not sure. Is that legal? It probably ought to be.
It is my understanding it is legal to call you on a cell phone, but you can't even zero out of these things. You know, it's a couple of these I've tried to get, push numbers and try to kick them out, and try to get to a do not call me anymore, type message.
Well, I've often thought that there ought to be a button on your phone and a law that said you get to electrocute 1 caller a year. But I'm a little severe about these things. Just one.
Just a little severe.
So if you're going to irritate people with calls, do it early in the year when they might not want to waste it on you.
Well, they stopped dialing me as a real person because of the air horn that I keep next to the phone. That kind of stopped that.
Jim, the Illinois Policy Institute says the state needs to cut $4.3 billion in spending. Is that a feasible possibility? Can the state cut more than $4 billion in spending?
I have no idea. It depends on who you believe. If you look at some of the recent candidates, they can say, yeah, you can do that. $4.3 billion out of $32 billion. I don't know how you cut 12% of the state budget.
Illinois Policy Institute is a partisan right-wing organization. They're entitled to their opinion, but they don't have any particular sway over what really happens. I don't know.
That's going to do it for this round of Metro Talk. Thanks for being with us. Jim Schrader, the publisher of The Telegraph, has been here, along with Pat Gowan, one of the editors with The Post. I'm Kent Scheffel. We'll see you next time.